Rolling through the sand like a thought in disguise. The scarab spins truth where the cosmos collide. Energy whispers, it never says goodbye. The Beatles crawl, the Beatles rise.
Go to AmericanHealer.website now. Get the tools for health and inspiration the way God intended.
Sort of burst the chaos, yet the chaos rise. My name Beatles, 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 over and over. Spinning the world in the grip of their shoulders. Beatles, 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 under and over. Rolling through time till the blackness is sober. The heat fades lower, the order begins. A stillness so perfect it hums from within. The void sings softly, entropy takes a bow. In the shadow of silence, the scarab knows how. The second law is dancing, feeding life through decay. The third law holds the promise that the stillness will stay. Beatles, 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 under and over. Rolling through time till the blackness is sober.
Go to AmericanHealer.website now. Get the tools for health and inspiration the way God intended.
Okay. I feel like now we could defund diabetes. I appreciate that. See, I've been learning some things. Right? I've been learning some things. So I feel like we was a little low energy. We need to we gotta find a way to pick the energy up. YouTube has officially evicted us from algorithms. We got to find a way to get back in there, right? So I need people to hit the like button, hit the subscribe, unsubscribe, resubscribe, all that. Hit the like, unlike it, re-like it, like jangle it, like you got to use the bathroom. This is what I need you to do. I need you to go on the subscribe and the like button, like you got to use the bathroom and people not opening the door fast enough. You ever been to the door and you trying to get in the house and somebody in there, you ain't got your key, somebody in there, you got to use the bathroom. Cling, 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 cling. I need you to do that to the like button and the subscribe button. Like, just, yeah, do that. Let me see if we can share stuff today. Let me see if we can share things today. How you doing and all that, YouTube? StreamYard. How you acting today, StreamYard? Nope. Still disrespectful. That's crazy. That is crazy. Oh, well, we found our workaround. Y'all just have to not watch this on your cell phone. You have to watch this on a laptop or tablet in order for it to make sense. Yeah, you got to watch this on a laptop or tablet in order for it to make sense. But we're going to dig back into there we go. That's another thing. I haven't been hitting the monetize button, so if I don't turn the commercials on, YouTube definitely ain't sharing the video. Wow, disrespectful. Okay, so there's that. Come on, YouTube, do your part. Okay. All right, so we're going to go back into this. Yeah, we're going to reapproach this because I think this is important. Right? I think this is important enough that we need to spend some time on these concepts. Right? So we already have some notes on the board from yesterday. Right? We already have some notes on the board from yesterday. So for the people tuning in, y'all may want to go back to the conversation from yesterday. Okay. So I guess before I get started, let me just say a few things. The term geometry, right? The term stop running in the hallway. The term geometry has different levels to it, right? And there's a secret aspect to it. All right. So the term geometry, and I probably should have started with this yesterday, right? But the concept of geometry, in fact, we're going to clear the board for this. Now, this concept of storytelling, I don't know if y'all know this. Well, y'all probably don't know, right? But masonry is, for all extents and purposes, just think of masonry as kinetic science. All right, now geometry. Right? Geometry has a couple of different levels to it. Right? Geometry has the surface layer. Right? And I have to say this so that way we have a better context when we're going through the book, the material, even when we're having a discussion. Right? Shapes. Right? So a lot of us, we hear geometry on the surface level, we immediately think shapes. Right? Is this light that's doing that? Okay. We immediately think shapes, right? And that is a definition of geometry, right? Shapes, right? On another level, metry refers to study or measure, right? And geo, oh, that's what that was. That was the dog. Is it still raining out there?
Slightly. It's drizzling now.
Well, make sure Ocean is warm and give her some of them treats. So on another level, geometry can refer to the measure or the study of the earth. See, that's a much more broad field of study, because once we open up geometry to the study of earth, almost everything on earth can fall up underneath the study of geometry, right? So I realized yesterday I got a little bit of feedback from yesterday's video because some people wanted me to keep going. Some people was like, yo, you ended the video too quick. So I realized that there's some people that don't really understand the concept of geometry, right? But remember, geometry is the foundation and maybe even the totality of masonry. So anybody in that pocket or interested in that study, you will come to learn there's more to geometry than squares, circles, and triangles, or dots and lines, right? So you can separate the two: geo, study of measure of earth, right? You can also take the 2D space and go into a 3D space, right? When you take geometry from 2 dimensions on paper into the real life space, 3 dimensions, you move much closer to Einstein's formula. All right. That is it for that marker. Right? How we doing? We good? Okay, yeah, we good. Now, Einstein's formula covers pretty much everything else in the universe, right? Energy equals mass, light, everything, right? The relationship of an object to the energy that it contains. That's what this formula is about. This formula is about the energy contained in matter, right? E equals mc squared. This is about the energy contained in matter. So any aspect almost of energy we can approach by discussing the parameters that energy is confined to, right? We can approach the discussion by the parameters that energy is confined to. So there's another space where we can look at this, right? What is up with my marker? I think something from this side, man, got to it. The symbol of ray. Remember, two symbols. One a standing wave and one a resonant wave cavity, right? When we talk about bound waves, that is the relationship of energy to matter, right? So a concept as complex as E equals mc squared could show up in one simple symbol, right? One simple symbol can encompass a very complex equation and more, right? Because again, energy to mass and matter is about the confinement of waves or bound waves, right? And our life force, right, what theology was trying to tell us was the very same thing. This concept, much later on, this concept and the associated concepts is literally what shout out to Rudo. Let me show y'all this video again, because we're gonna see this video. We're gonna see this video so many times. I want y'all to be able to use this video, this 3 minute video as a teaching tool, back pocket. You can watch this with your people, bop, 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 go nuts and break it down. Okay, the dancing inky part in the beginning, just overlook that. Just don't, overlook
Rolling through the sand like a thought in disguise. The scarab spins truth where the cosmos collide. Energy whispers, it never says goodbye. The Beatles crawl, the Beatles rise.
Go to AmericanHealer.website now. Get the tools for health and inspiration the way God intended.
Sort of burst the chaos, yet the chaos rise. My name Beatles, 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 over and over, spinning the world in the grip of their shoulders. Beatles, 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 under and over, rolling through time till the blackness is sober. The heat fades lower, the order begins. A stillness so perfect it hums from within. The void sings softly, entropy takes a bow. In the shadow of silence, the scarab knows how. The second law is dancing, feeding life through decay. The third law holds the promise that the stillness will stay.
Go to AmericanHealer.website now. Get the tools for health and inspiration the way God intended.
Okay, that's probably not a good example right there on the intro. I need to do it like this so I can stop the video and show certain parts of the video. Yeah, when I press play just now, that was on StreamYard. I can't pause that video anywhere. But here on the YouTube, I can pause it and show y'all specific parts of the video of what I'm talking about. Right? So when we go back to classes, we will be able to have another level of visual in terms of going from the breath, right? Going from the breath all the way through to cellular respiration. I think that is a super powerful visual tool to be able to make the information make a lot more sense. Right? So we can get to the part where it makes. Now here at the end here, this is where the water molecules and the ATP combine to produce your light and kinetic energy, which I don't really think there is a such thing as kinetic energy. I don't really think there is a such thing as kinetic energy. I don't think that. I think that is an adjective. I think that is descriptive. I don't think that's actually a real thing. Right? Because you have potential energy and kinetic energy. So ATP is described as releasing kinetic energy, right? But it's only really kinetic energy when it transforms potential energy somewhere else. So what happens is your ATP is able to, release its energy inside the cytoplasm of the cell. It's also able to bind to proteins and release the energy directly into a protein. And when it does that, it transforms, it allows the protein to work, whatever that is, right? But it's this thing being released from the ATP, which is transforming the potential into kinetic energy, right? I think just saying kinetic energy leaves something on the table, right? But my point is, this conversation about energy and mass or matter, or the energy that makes up mass and matter, is everywhere. right? When we are, for instance, if we go to the website, right? Let's do a little teaching and promo at the same time, right? If we go to the website, right, and say we order, if we go to the website and we get some bitters, right? We're getting the bitters to stimulate our T2R receptors. We have T2R receptors from our tongue all the way into our heart, literally into our heart. Those bitter receptors correspond to a different type of activation of the NRF2 system, and for the agonist stimulation, for agonist hormesis, so to speak, right? So all of these things require a transformation of matter and mass to energy, and then backwards, right? Matter and mass to energy, and then back to matter and mass, right? If we make it more simple, oh no, we stick with the website for a second. If we go to the website and we order the anabolic hormone help, right? That's not just for men, that's for women also, right? That is to stimulate our androgenic production, which we all need help with, right? Particularly women, because they're having a lot of issues with cystic, with polycystic fibrosis and fibroids and all of those things. So the anabolic hormone has a lot of purposes. But when we stimulate systems, all of that requires energy. All of that requires the production of new proteins. So you're asking the DNA to get to work, DNA, RNA, tRNA, et cetera, microRNA. Like you're asking the whole nucleic acid family to get to work, producing proteins. That requires energy turnover. Then you need those proteins to work. All proteins work like Transformers in the cartoon. Every time there's a transformation, that requires energy, right? So even when amino acids form proteins and they go to their secondary, tertiary, quaternary structures, all of those steps require energy. Once they're fully formed, and they're going to be enzymes, hormones, pigments, peptides, whatever they're going to do, that job requires energy. When we get to the energy side, you're talking about unlocking the energy in mass or matter, right? That's where we get to fats and sugars. That's where we go beta oxidation, Krebs cycle, mitochondria. When we go to the mitochondria, we're breaking down hydrogen literally into standing waves. Now we are literally electrons, protons, right? And now we're in the pure energy space. Electrons, protons. The electrons and protons are going to power the mitochondria to produce water and ATP, right? The water in and of itself is pure energy. The ATP is stored energy that's activated by water, right? Hydrolysis, right? Hydrolysis, tomato. The water is what activates the ATP. So you're going from mass and matter to energy, and then back to mass and matter, because when you breaking stuff down to release the energy that your body's going to harness, that all of those byproducts are then recycled. So a certain portion of that energy is used to then recycle all of the containers that held that energy back into mass and matter. Because you also need your standard amino acid production for your standard protein maintenance, right? So your non-essential amino acids come from this pure energy production, right? I know that's your favorite video. I know that's your favorite video. Right? So E equals MC squared. I don't know what they was doing in here. When I came in here to start this video, I seen my little ones running, sneaking out of here. And now it's like goggles on the floor. Like, what could they have been doing in here with swimming pool goggles? Like, what were they doing in here? Anyway, this is an equation that you can pull from this shape, from this symbol. Now, the equation is very detailed, very specific. The symbol, the shape, still has much more information. This is just one equation that you can pull from this shape, from this geometry, from this symbol, right? So going back to my first point, so we don't go too far, the term geometry in and of itself, right? The term geometry in and of itself has a lot of facets, pun intended, right? There's a lot of facets to the study of geometry, right? Even let me see this here. There's actually, let me show you how this. There's actually a study, a scientific discipline, if you will, a course, a curriculum called molecular geometry. Let's see what we have here. Let me see, I'm trying to find something. Trying to find something to give us like a nice little simple, quick breakdown. Right? So even when you get to chemistry is based, the study of chemistry is based in geometry. The study of chemistry is based in geometry. So there is a lot of different aspects of geometry outside of just shapes. But geometry is boring, right? Geometry is boring. So think about if you was trying to explain the universe in terms of circles and squares. How could you hold the attention of children or just the masses of people, right? You always get the people who have an application for that information, and so they'll be open to learn that or listen to what you have to say. But for the masses, they're not interested in that. For the masses, they're not interested in that. You're going to need to put some character. You're going to need to put some humor. You're going to need to add some fear, right? You're going to need to generate some love in the story. You're going to have to generate interest by anthropomorphizing the conversation of energy, mass, and matter, right? So for me, it's no coincidence that the most famous equation in all of science comes from a Jewish guy. Because I know what his foundation is. I know where he's pulling this from. I know where his E equals MC squared comes from. This is a biblical concept, which obviously we can talk about where the concept came from before it was in the Bible, but this is a biblical concept. Right? All right, so let's get back to the book. Let's get back to the work. All right, so an equation is not the thing itself. An equation is a precision statement describing a thing. A narrow description that captures one aspect of how matter or energy behaves under specific conditions. Like an adjective, it qualifies reality. How fast, how strong, how curved, how likely. When physicists write an equation, they are freezing a small slice of behavior into symbolic form so it could be calculated and repeated. The equation is therefore a compression of reality, not reality in full, right? And again, the best explanation I can give for a wide variety of reasons is music versus music, right? Music, right? Musical notes, right? Musical notes versus actual sounds going into your ear, right? That is the exact same thing as equations, the exact same thing as written chemistry, right? We talk about a calcium ion, right? But we don't realize that the calcium ion is not just like a block that's going to go into your bones, and your bones is just like a brick building made out of bricks that are called calcium. No, the calcium is a little tiny electric field. The calcium is a little tiny electric field because remember, calcium is what? What is calcium on the periodic table? Right, what is calcium on the periodic table? 20. Right? So calcium as a resonant wave cavity or a system of bound waves, right? Calcium has 20 bound waves. Calcium has 20 bound waves, right? And those bound waves create a very specific instrument. When light hits that instrument, it has a very specific vibration. That is what your biochemistry is made from. It is all waves. Shout out to Kev. Kev, you just got us a little boost. I don't know what you did. You got us a little boost. We boosted up a little bit. We got about 10, 15. No, not 15. We definitely got about 10 people. So we got to appreciate Kevo for coming in, reposting the stream. If you have not reposted the stream already, come on, people.
Share the video, hit the like, subscribe, Cash App, Super Chat, AmericanHealer.website, Amazon. Share the video, hit the like, subscribe, Cash App, Super Chat, AmericanHealer.website, Amazon.
Yeah, come on, people. We got to follow Kevo Lee. It's too easy. Right? All right. But we got to keep that in mind, these basic concepts. And we've been discussing that since that very concept since. So this is not new, right? If you don't have this book, go to Amazon, add this to your cart and check out, right? I'm just giving you examples. I'm not even sure if you can see right here what this says right here. Right? Right here, this says sheet music. Sheet music. This is the lymphatic immunity book. If you don't have this book, go to Amazon, add this to your cart. You know the rest. Add this to your cart, check out. Right? But we've been having this conversation because it's one of the most important aspects to get in terms of health, in terms of biochemistry, right? We have to understand that chemistry, when we're talking about food, when we're talking about nutrients, when we're looking at chemistry, when we're looking at equations, none of those are the actual real thing. None of those are the actual real thing, right? They're a proxy, right? They're a proxy for the real thing, right? When you're talking about vitamin D, for instance, right? Another thing, AmericanHealer.website. Go get your vegan vitamin D, right? At AmericanHealer.website. Vitamin D regulates cholesterol, calcium, and iron, right? That's baked into the name of vitamin D. Cholecalciferol. Cholesterol, calcium, iron. Cholesterol regulates, this is why vitamin D is so important. Think about this. Think about this concept, because vitamin D is theology in a nutrient, right? Vitamin D is the Bible in a pill. It's the Quran in a pill. It's the papyri in a pill, right? It's the Bhagavad Gita in a pill, right? The Upanishads, the Vedas in a pill. Vitamin D is theology in a pill. right? I know some people like, where are you getting, where are you getting this idea? Vitamin D is theology in a pill. I will tell you, vitamin D is theology in a pill because all theology, major theology, describes the Creator, the Most High, in terms of electromagnetism. Some of them very overtly, right? And so with the Bible, people pick and choose what they want to be true. And usually they're doing that based on the crooked teachings of the colonizers of 2,000 years ago, when they put together the early church and what they were doing. I would say the first 1,000 years of the formation of the church, right? So you have a book. In the book, it describes God 3 ways. It describes God as mechanical waves. It describes God as electromagnetic waves. It also describes God as a person. The early church fathers, I can't even put this on the early church fathers because it was early church fathers that was really dropping some real science. But the early church, this is how they resolved these issues. They resolved these issues by saying, anytime God is referred to as light or sound, that is metaphor. Anytime God is referred to as a person, that is what the Bible is actually, that's the true part. That's the true part. So today we have a bunch of people that believe that part. And the other 2 layers are just left out there, right? For me, my mind has never been restrained in that way. So I've always felt free to say, well, what if this part is the fake part? What if the God as a man part is the fake part? What if this God is a wave, mechanical wave, or electromagnetic wave, or what if that is the actuality, right? And so over the years, I started to learn, and start to poke at it, and it started to make more and more and more and more sense. And as I got older, 15 years old, 16 years old, I was able to start to cross-referencing some stuff and start to see like, hey, this thing has legs. This is a thing here. In fact, these books are different than most people believe. These are scientific. Theology is science. Theology is science. Now, obviously, you have universal truths that have been told at one point and then packaged and repackaged. So, if you're from the neighborhood, you can recognize if something is stepped on. You know what I'm saying? It ain't that pure, that, so it might be stepped on. They might have put a little cut on it. They might put a little cut on it. You know what I'm saying? But as a student, it's your job, like when people were looking for gold, even now in Africa when they're looking for diamonds, You know, you got to put that stuff in the sifter and you got to sift through it. You got to sift through it because you're going to have gold nuggets in there if you don't sift through it that you're going to throw out, right? Or like Taj Tariq, so you're going to throw out the baby with the bathwater, right? You don't throw out the baby with the bathwater, right? So we got to get this concept of storytelling down pat, because this is how we get from the storytellers to theology to religion to modern science, in that order, right? Because first you just had storytellers. Today's religions didn't exist yesterday. Today's religions didn't exist yesterday. Think about it. When Muhammad is in the cave and the angel Gabriel is supposedly telling him the Quran, Muhammad is not a Muslim. He's not a Muslim. How could he be a Muslim? Muslim starts after he dies. Islam starts after him. So God, quote unquote, chose him, blessed him, etc., etc. And he wasn't a Muslim. He wasn't a practicing Muslim. He wasn't doing none of the Muslim rituals or none of that. Right? If Jesus was running around teaching people, he's not teaching people the Bible, because it didn't, there's no New Testament at the time that Jesus is, quote unquote, supposed to be running around teaching. Doesn't exist. So you got to think to yourself, Muhammad wasn't Muslim, Christ wasn't Christian. Right? So the only thing that lasts millennia to millennia to millennia to millennia, the only thing that has a value, right? If we think about Kemet, the only thing that has a value enough that I'm going to use big blocks of stone and carve it into it. Think about this. They're carving messages into rocks. They're carving messages into rocks. Nobody's carving messages into rocks. I could barely get y'all to go to get the books and read the books. Like, who's writing a book in stone? Do you know what kind of work that takes to write a book? Wait, do you know what kind of work it takes to just write a book? Period. Right? Even today, you got I was about to say Spotify, you got Speechify, you got AI, you got all kind of, you got Adobe, you got all kind of internet tools, Grammarly, you got all kind of stuff that can help you write. It's still hard to write a book, right? That's not writing it in, it's like in rocks, in stone. There's a time period where I thought that the Medu Neter was the language of the Egyptian people. Yeah. Then I came to find out, like, wait a minute. The Medu Neter is not the language of Egypt. Then I find out there is no such thing as ancient Egypt. This stuff is all gobbledygook. Like, there's no such thing as ancient Egypt, right? Before Egypt, and Egypt is the Greeks. The Greeks, the Medu Neter is not the language of the Greeks, but Egypt is Greek. So Medu Neter is not the language of the Greek people. They needed help to translate. They didn't know what that stuff was. So before Egypt, you don't have ancient Egypt, you have Kemet. And even in Kemet, Medu Neter was not their everyday language. They wasn't like the Flintstones. They wasn't writing in rocks to each other, sending a letter in rocks. Like, who's sending a letter in rocks? Yo, what's good, fam? hopefully, you know what I mean, get this letter, write me back. Like, who's sending a letter in rocks? No, they had a regular, everyday language they writing on paper. They invented paper. Yeah, they had a regular everyday script, boop, 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 hieratic, you know, blah, 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 blah. They writing up notes, letters, just like we do. Easy peasy, quick, blah, 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 blah. The metal nature was specific, had a specific purpose. The gods. Okay, well, the gods are universal forces. So this is what we're inscribing in rock. What we're inscribing in rock is everything that we learn about these universal forces. Because whatever we learn about these universal forces, it's going to be true today. It's going to be true tomorrow. It's going to be true in 1,000 years. It's going to be true in 10,000 years. It's going to be true into infinity. So this is what has the value of etching it into stone. Not a transient story about a group of people, because people is going to recycle. People going to recycle. And people going to have sex. Yeah, people going to have sex and they're going to recycle. And the way your mind is trained, the thing that is different is always the thing that's attractive. So, of course, it's going to be some dark people that's going to have sex with some white folks. It's going to be some white folks that's going to have some sex and make some babies with some dark people. Then if we see some brown people or some yellow people, oh, they look exotic. Yeah, we're going, yeah, bring Shorty through. So all of those ideas that is attached to people are transient. They come and go. They ebb and flow, right? But the information about the universal forces, the information about how those universal forces act in the body of man, how they compose the body of man, how they compose the food source of man, the world around you, and how you can harness those things, right, to facilitate work, right? The early inceptions of technology. Those things don't change, right? Facts. That's a good way to put that. So much history, so little time. That right there, I'm going to write that down. I think I'm stealing that. Yeah, I'm stealing that. I like that. So much history, so little time. Yeah, see, I'm back like how I was when I was a teenager. When I was a teenager and I was in my rap bag heavy, I had a pen on me always. And I'd just be writing down, find a piece of paper on the garbage, a receipt, a brown paper bag, anything, right? Oh, yeah. Put that in my pocket. That's going to become a hook, a bar, a song, a title. All right. So this is how we get from the early storytellers, right, to the people who are no longer. So we go from the early storytellers who are telling stories about the universe and the world around them and what they understand about nature, right? These are the explorers. Just like in our world today, right? When you have a family gathering, right? Or even online, the people who tell the best stories are the people who have had the most problems, the most trouble, because those are the people who went out and experienced the world, right? So it's the guy who's been stabbed or shot or went to jail or has 1,000 children, or he started 100 businesses and went bankrupt 57 times or whatever. That person is the storyteller, right? When they tell their stories, people retell those stories, and the stories, if they're good enough, and not good enough in terms of entertaining enough, but if they have enough reality in the story where they can resonate with the people, the stories outlive the person telling the story, right? When we're talking about stories about the inception of the universe, those stories, once it get past the explorers, the original scientists, those stories now become theology, right? The first group of people who are experimenting, who are studying, figuring stuff out, sharing the stories, and then retelling the stories, anthropomorphized to the family, like sharing the info with the family, it's research. Stories, it's just the griot, right? Later on, after those early generations are gone, now this information's coveted because the people who have the information don't know how the information was obtained. The people who obtained it are gone. They just have what's left, the record, oral tradition, till they get like, no, we got to write this stuff down. They have a higher value for it than the generation that was around when the original information was put together. That's just human nature. The stuff that's handed to us, we don't have the value for it. Later generations, get your flowers after you're dead, right? So later generations, this is theology now. This is a course of study, right? Now you have the ability to measure people who study and who live out the studies versus the population and groups of people who don't follow these studies. They don't pay attention to these studies. They don't incorporate these studies. There's a difference in results and how people live, how long they live, how wealthy they become, how happy they become, just whatever. Different levels of success and different. So now, after the next groups, now you have the inception of religion. Now the theology becomes religion, right? And when it becomes religion, it's culture. It's widespread culture, right? And widespread culture has rituals that the people who are practicing it have no idea what it is. Because these people are not a part of the theology group, and they're not a part of the first people who actually obtained the information where it was science and research, and they were encoding science into stories. They don't know why they're doing these things outside of the fact that I'm a Seventh-day Adventist, I'm a Catholic, I'm a Jewish person, or, we don't eat pork because my moms and my pops, they was following Elijah Muhammad. They was Nation of Islam. So we Scientology or whatever it is, right? You have your rituals, right? But you don't understand the ritual. So that goes on until you get to the next generation, and the next generation bucks. They buck the blind ritual that they don't understand. They have questions about it. First, they're curious, and they start to ask their elders, mom, dad, uncle, whoever. They don't have answers. Then they ask the religious leader, the imam, the rabbi, the pastor, right? They don't have answers. So now what they do is they throw away the system because they've decided that answers do not exist. They decide that answers do not exist because the people they have asked for answers don't have them. But those two things don't equate. Just because the people you ask don't have answers don't mean that answers don't exist. And like my father told me, if you're looking for a book and that book has not been written, then that means it's your job to go and write that book. If you're looking for some information that's not out there yet, it's your job to go do that research. It's your job to do that study. And that study may take you a year, 5 years, 10 years, 50 years to get to. That's what you have to get to. That's the beauty of reading books, because you can read a person's life work, in a matter of weeks, months, or years, and assimilate whole lifetimes worth of information, literally within, like I said, weeks, months, or years. So this is where we get to the organization of the rebut, right? You get the organization of rebut. So now you get a religion out of no religion. You get the people who have rejected culture, and they make a culture out of rejecting culture. So now you have atheists, and atheists are a religion. Even though they would tell you that they're not, atheism is a religion. Atheism is a religion, right? So now you have a religion. Now you get a culture out of atheism, which is modern science. Modern science. Modern science is the culture. It is the ritual, the culture, the practice of atheism, right? So that's why there's such a strong clash between science today and people who have religious ideas, because the people who have the quote unquote scientific mindset, they don't realize their origins come from theology. They don't realize the people who gave them their equations, their biggest jumps. Newton was not an atheist. Darwin was not an atheist. Einstein was not an atheist, right? The people who made the game-changing fundamental discoveries were not atheists. You have a handful. You have a handful of atheists, but those would come later in the 1900s, right? But originally, all of the precepts, right? Observation, right? Experimentation, documentation. Those things don't come from atheists. Those things come from the people who created the papyri, right? Documentation, experimentation, all of that, observation, all of those, that comes from Kemet, at least what we have today. That all comes from people who were I can't say believers in God, because in the climate that we have now, that gets confused. And so people think that the Kemetic people believed in God or gods in the same way as somebody today does, which is not entirely correct. Right? So when you're talking about intelligence, right, which is the marker, that is the difference between today and yesterday, right? Yesterday's world, they believed that energy had its own inherent intelligence. It carried information. Today, modern science is built on the crumbling foundation that energy does not have information inherent to it or intelligence, right? And these concepts were laid out in the 1600s, 1700s, and 1800s, right? Now, the problem, which is why the foundation is crumbling, is because of quantum mechanics. Quantum mechanics says exactly the opposite. It is a throwback as far as we can go. As far as we can go. It is a throwback as far as we can go. 5,000, 10,000, 12,000 years. It says that energy organizes itself. Energy has its own information. In fact, energy is information itself. Literally, the fabric of information is energy. Energy is information. This is how energy organizes itself, because it is inherently intelligent. Problem is, we have 400 years of science and institutions built on the opposite idea, right? And that translates over to food. That translates to biology, right? That translates to biochemistry, right? And all of that said to say, this is why vitamin D is theology in a pill. Vitamin D is theology in a pill, because vitamin D typically you get from light. You get vitamin D from light. Now, the interesting thing about vitamin D, one of the interesting things, and if you don't have this book, go get it, right? If you don't have this book, go and get it. Ah. 20 minutes. If you don't have this book, go and get it. The photochemistry book, right? Go get this book. This book has everything you need to know about vitamin D. Everything you need to know about vitamin D is in this book, including on page 37, the very simple binary, transformation that starts the process of producing vitamin D from cholesterol, right? But the beauty, or one of the interesting things, is the type of light that produces vitamin D. It's not visible. It's invisible. You can't see it. You can't see UVB. You can't see UVB, and you can't physically interpret UVB by heat, because there's plenty of days when it can be 80, 90 degrees outside and there be no UVB out there. So even though it's hot outside, even though you're outside in the sun, you're not creating any vitamin D. You're not creating any vitamin D. And vitamin D regulates the electricity and the magnetism in your body. Vitamin D regulates the electricity and the magnetism in your body by regulating calcium and iron. By regulating calcium, it regulates all the electricity in your body. By regulating iron, it regulates all the magnetism in your body. By regulating cholesterol, it regulates the hormones and even most of your organs. So literally, it is a conversation you're having with the sun, with a star. Your body is literally locked into a conversation with a star that's supposed to go on every day. Every day you're supposed to talk to this star, right? Because a conversation is really just transferring information from one another, right? When we hear the term conversation, we automatically assume that the conversation is using words. But that's kind of stupid, right? That's kind of stupid nowadays, right? Because we have conversation on text message, right? We have conversation on instant messenger, right? We have conversation on Apple Messenger. We have conversation through DMs. We have a conversation in the chat, right? We have a conversation via email. We don't actually have to exchange words or sound anymore. So when you think about vitamin D, you realize you never did. Right? It's information exchange. And it's vital. Because if we ignore the star, we die. If we ignore the star, we die. Cholesterol is at the center of diabetes, high blood pressure, heart disease. Right? This is why we developed Inky's laws of metabolism, right? On the discovery that cholesterol is not the problem, but cholesterol metabolism is the problem. Because your haplotype sets your liver function. Sets your liver function. So your liver is set, boop, you're going to produce X amount of cholesterol, especially if you're dark like me. You're going to produce X amount of cholesterol. And so if you don't convert that cholesterol to other stuff, testosterone, this one, that one, vitamin D, if you're not converting this cholesterol, you're going to have high levels of cholesterol. Grand opening, grand closing, because you're no longer living in a place where you have a constant conversion of cholesterol without you thinking about it. See, if I still lived, well, I never lived in Haiti, but say I lived in Haiti, right? I would constantly be getting UVB year round. So I would never have to think twice about my cholesterol because my cholesterol would be constantly being converted into vitamin D and other byproducts. But living in Michigan, living in Philly, living in New York, I have to make a conscious effort, right? And I have to remember that even if I get vitamin D, right? Even if I go to the website and get vitamin D, take vitamin D, taking vitamin D gives me the benefit of the nutrient, but it doesn't give me the benefit of the transformative process. I'm going to need y'all to hear that. Taking the supplement of vitamin D does not give me the benefit of the transformative process. Y'all better study these books because y'all not reading enough. Right? That's why the subtitle to this book is Inky's Law of Metabolism. Right? We started the laws of metabolism in this book. Right? Wait, what are you talking about, Inky? I don't even understand what you're saying. Even as I'm hearing you say it, I don't understand what you're saying. What I'm saying is, your body makes cholesterol. Let's do it once. Let's just piecemeal it. So let's make it as simple as possible. Your body makes cholesterol, right? Forget about the cholesterol you eating from your chicken and your woo-woo-woo. Forget about the meat for a second. Forget about diet. Your body makes cholesterol. Your body makes a certain amount of cholesterol. One of the ways that that cholesterol is utilized is it is converted into vitamin D. Your body's expected to convert a portion of your cholesterol into vitamin D. Now, there's a portion of cholesterol that's supposed to be converted into new cells. There's a portion of your cholesterol that's supposed to be converted into hormones, right? But for now, we'll just stick with the vitamin D, right? There's a portion that's supposed to be. If you don't get any UVB, that doesn't happen. So that cholesterol is unconverted. It just sits there and builds up. It just sits there and builds up. Now, if you're recognizing that you need some vitamin D, blah, 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 you go to AmericanHealer.website, you get you some vitamin D, boom, ink, I'm good. I'm getting the vitamin D from the website. All right, we're straight. You still have the cholesterol though, right? You got the vitamin D, so you got the benefits of the vitamin, right? The vitamin D is regulating kidney, liver, calcium, iron, is doing those things, right? Your bones, is doing those things. But the part where the sun reduced your cholesterol level by converting cholesterol into vitamin D, that's not happening. So you still have to figure out what you're going to do with that excess cholesterol. Yeah, there's that. Right? There's that. Now, if you couple that with the fact that usually people who are low in vitamin D is because they don't spend much time outside. Those are usually, not always, because people got indoor gyms and blah, 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 but usually these are people that are not active. They don't exercise. So now the stimulation to convert the cholesterol into hormones is also low. So you don't have the cholesterol being converted by the sunlight into vitamin D, and you don't really have the cholesterol being converted into hormones either, because you're not exercising. Yeah, you're not exercising. You're probably not having that much sex either. So you don't really have any stimulants to convert the cholesterol into hormones. So you have high levels of cholesterol, not because of anything else, but because you are now living outside of the natural way that your body was designed. See, theology is supposed to communicate that, because theology is supposed to tell us about our creator, what our creator is, what was the process of creation, how do we fit into the process of creation, how do we maintain the vehicle, right? The driver's, the owner's manual. We're supposed to get an owner's manual. That theology is supposed to provide that. But when we forget that theology is scientific and we get locked into the stories without the actual science, then it becomes a chain around our ankle. It becomes a chain around our mind. It becomes enslavement. Instead of tying us back to the source, it ties us to a prison, because we don't know what this is. We don't know how to use this, right? And then we're stuck operating out here in chaos, right? Now, that's a certified fact. Definitely still a non-negotiable. I appreciate you, Jack. I appreciate you. Yeah, see, look, Tika, I got a little button. Hold on, let me hit the button, Tika. Let me hit the button.
Share the video, hit the like, subscribe, Cash App, Super Chat, AmericanHealer.website, Amazon. Share the video, hit the like, subscribe, Cash App, Super Chat, AmericanHealer.website, Amazon.
Yeah, yeah. So this is how we get, right, from explorers just trying to grope their way through the dark and figure some stuff out, and then share that with the family in terms of story, right? You get the science from observation, right? From observation. That's why I keep saying explorers, observation, right? That's what scientists are, explorers. That's where we get the Indiana Jones concepts from, right? Where when science was an outdoor activity. Right? That's a fiction movie. But I'm saying it comes from the concept of science being an outdoor activity, right? You're making observations and you're trying to figure out the phenomena you're observing. And as you figure some stuff out, obviously you want to share this with the family. But the family is not educated as you are, right? They don't understand whatever your nuance thing is. That's still the same today. If you have a certification, even if you're a personal trainer, even, or you're a car mechanic, don't nobody in your house understand what you're talking about. You a fitness, you know fitness. You coming in, you trying to tell them, oh, your form is off. No, you're supposed to put your knee like this. No, when you do that lift right there, if you put your knee like this, that's gonna put more stress on your lower back. You're gonna have back pain. They're like, yeah, I got back pain. Yeah, that's because you can move your knee like this. So if you turn your foot in, that'll change the line of force. And nobody in your house understand that. If you a car mechanic and you know how to fix cars and all that, and somebody pull into your garage and you like, all right, turn the car on. Let me hear the car run. Turn the car off. All right, turn the car on one more time. Okay, you hear that? You don't hear that sound? Okay, hey, oh, pop the hood. Pop, 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 pop. Yeah, you need a new one of these right here. Can see this belt right here? Yeah, this belt right here. I can hear that. You couldn't hear that belt? How long was it making that sound? You didn't hear that sound? Nobody know what you talking about. Only other mechanics do. So in order for you to try to explain what's going wrong with somebody's car to the general, you have to create a story now. You have to tell a story. Right? You got to make it make sense. You got to provide examples. You got to use metaphors, analogies, right? And these are one-off events, right? You only have to explain this one time as a mechanic to the person with the car. But if you're dealing with a universal force, a universal truth, this is something you got to explain over and over and over again. Over and over and over again. So now you need a organized set of metaphors and analogies. You need a story. You need a story, right? So this is how observation, experimentation, this is how this becomes later on theology. Anyway, let me get to the book, because we're going to be here forever and we're not going to get through the book, right? We will be here forever and not get through the book. Ooh.
Inky prayer number 2. We give thanks and praise to the Most High God for the divine spark that set our cells into perpetual motion. We give thanks for the magnetism of the Most Holy, the magnetism that repels and attracts the ferry boats of light 60,000 miles every 60 seconds throughout our vessels and caves. We give thanks for the ability to drink clean water every 60 minutes, flooding the river of life. We give thanks that sugar has not covered our ferries and turned them into stone. We give thanks that darkness has not covered the riverbanks with calcium and turned them into stone. We give thanks that anger and fear have not turned our almonds bitter, turning our heart to stone. We give thanks for smooth sailing upstream through the valley of death, through the superior vena cava into the right atrium. We give thanks for smooth sailing around the heart through the corona crown, joining the vortex in the right atrium. We give thanks for the perfect black solar repeater that induces the primary electromagnetic wave, opening the mouth of the Kodesh HaKodeshim. We give thanks for the mechanical wave produced when the mouth of the Kodesh HaKodeshim closes. We give thanks to the ray wave, reflecting on the semi-lunar valves, opening a pathway to the vineyard. We give thanks for the mechanical wave produced when the lunar gate to the vineyard closes. We give thanks to the Most High God that provides the light and our breath, and the light in our breath. We give thanks for the fine olfactory system that makes our grapes ripe with light. We give thanks for the Jed pillar that provides us with a stable fleet of ferry boats to dock in our vineyard. We give thanks for smooth sailing through the pulmonary vein into the storm of the left atrium. We give thanks for the perfect black solar repeater that induces the primary electromagnetic wave, opening the mouth of the Kodesh HaKodeshim. We give thanks for the mechanical wave produced when the mouth of the Kodesh HaKodeshim closes. We give thanks to the ray wave, reflecting on the semi-lunar valves, opening a pathway into the holy royal arch of the Wa scepter. We give thanks for the mechanical wave produced when the lunar gate into the holy royal arch of the Wa scepter closes. We give thanks for the magnetism of the Most Holy, the magnetism that repels and attracts the ferry boats of light 60,000 miles every 60 seconds throughout our vessels and our caves. Amen.
Whew. Okay. All right. So let's get back to the book. Geometry is the form of matter and energy itself. Before numbers, before algebra, before calculus, reality already existed as shape, boundary, curvature, symmetry, and proportion. A standing wave is geometry. A standing wave is geometry. An orbit is geometry. A membrane, a cavity, a heart chamber, an atom, a pyramid. These are not descriptions of energy. They are energy organized into shape, right? Energy bound in a specific shape. Energy bound in a specific shape means it has a very specific set of behaviors, right? Geometry is the character, the full entity made of many interacting properties at once, right? And this is where you get your origin of scientific mechanism. Parts, and the interactions of those parts. Because geometry holds multiple properties simultaneously, length, angle, curvature, proportion, symmetry, it carries more information than any single equation can. This is why early civilizations could encode deep physical insight without the use of formulas. See, today we discount our ancestors because they're not using formulas. Oh, are you saying? People ask me that all the time. Hold on, Inky. Are you trying to say that you believe that Imhotep? Are you trying to say that you think Imhotep knew Einstein's formula? Are you trying to say that you think Einstein knew Schrodinger's equations for wave functions? Are you saying that somebody in Kemet knew the formula for a wave function? No. I'm not trying to say that Kemet knew Schrodinger's wave equations. I'm not saying that in the papyri there exists a formula of a wave equation that Schrodinger secretly, he secretly found it in the papyri, and then he rewrote it, and then boom, yeah, I did that. That's what Euclid did. That's how Euclid gets credit for geometry and masonry. That's not what I'm saying when I say kinetic wave function or kinetic quantum mechanics, or even with the Bible, right? Even with the Bible. What I'm saying is that what we know of today as an atom, what we know of today as an electron, what we understand today as a proton, we didn't use those words, electron and proton, 5,000 years ago. We had a whole nother lexicon, vernacular, vocabulary that we used to actively describe the exact same things. Because reality is reality. The fundamental fabric of reality has not changed. How we are describing has changed. And problem comes in when we're discounting how it was previously described, because our arrogance has told us if it's not described the way that we do now, it must be incorrect. Or because they didn't know this, right? Because they didn't, that's the same literally as saying because, and I wonder what's the date on that. Let me look this up. That's interesting. Let's get the date on this. Let's get some dates on this. That'd be dope. When was put y'all in the game so y'all can see what I'm doing. When was musical notation invented? Okay, so let's do okay. So somewhere around 1,000. Somewhere around 1,000. Somewhere around 1,000 is where we get musical notation as we know it today. Right? Somewhere around 1,000, the year 1,000 is where we get musical notation as we know it today, which is very interesting. Right? Because it is based on the octave, and we have an ogdode in Kemet. We have an ogdode, and the ogdode describes creative vibrations. Very interesting. Very interesting, right? But it's very much the same as saying people who don't know how to write music don't know how to play it, right? Literally, we totally destroyed that concept. We literally destroyed that concept in a whole nother way. I know because I'm born the same year and the same place as rap. Right? I'm born the same year and same place as rap. Right? So I know that's insane. Right? Because literally rap was born because they stopped teaching music and got rid of the instruments in school. And when that happened, the music inside the people, well, we just started to use broken records and start scratching, start, sampling sounds. We didn't know how to play them. So we'll just listen to a record that has the sound on it. Oh, that's the drum? Yeah, that's the kind of drums I can. Yeah, let me grab those drums. Let me grab a bass guitar from over here. Let me grab something. Whoop. I can put together the song that I'm hearing in my head without even knowing how to play any instruments. I can sample a drum from over there and sample some hi-hats and some flutes and some strings and I can put this thing together without even knowing how to play an instrument. You have multi-platinum producers. They don't know how to play no instruments. They know how to use an MPC player. Right? But that's what that's akin to. Saying because you don't know musical notes, you don't know music. You can't make music. You can't critique music. You can't explore music. That would be insane. That's the very same thing going on with science. So we really have to break this down. A story. Oh no, I'm jumping. This is why early civilizations could encode deep physical insight without formulas. By working with geometry, they were working directly with the object level structure of reality, not a symbolic approximation of it. Geometry is the body. Equations are labels placed on the body after the fact. A story is the next level up. A story is what happens when multiple geometries interact through time. A story contains characters, which are stable forms, actions of those characters, motion and transformation, right, which is the usage and transformation of energy, constraints, which is the boundaries of energy that can be utilized, harnessed, or transformed by the characters, and then outcomes of said actions, interactions, and transformations. That is exactly what physical process is. An electron transport chain is a story, right? An electron transport chain is a story. A heartbeat is a story.
Rolling through the sand like a thought in disguise. The scarab spins truth where the cosmos collide. Energy whispers, it never says goodbye. The Beatles crawl, the Beatles rise.
Go to AmericanHealer.website now. Get the tools for health and inspiration the way God intended.
Saw the burst, the chaos, yet the chaos rise. My name Beatles, 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 over and over. Spinning the world in the grip of their shoulders. Beatles, 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 under and over. Rolling through time till the blackness is sober. The heat fades lower, the order begins. The stillness so perfect, it hums from within. The void sings softly, entropy takes a bow. In the shadow of silence, the scarab knows how. The second law is dancing, feeding life through decay. The third law holds the promise that the stillness will stay. Time till the blackness is sober.
Go to AmericanHealer.website now. Get the tools for health and inspiration the way God intended.
I repeat, the electron transport chain is a story. A heartbeat is a story. Stellar evolution is a story. Each character is a geometric structure, and each interaction is an exchange of energy constrained by geometry. This is the true origin of scientific mechanism. First there is form, then there is interaction. Only afterward do equations appear as bookkeeping tools to track specific relationships inside the interaction. Ancient myth did not invent stories instead of mechanisms. It created mechanisms in narrative form. A narrative can hold many variables at once without collapsing into symbols. Modern science inverted the order. It starts with equations and tries to reconstruct geometry from them. Ancient science started with geometry and encoded interaction as story. Both describe the same phenomenon, but at different resolutions. Equations are high precision adjectives. Geometry is the full character. Story is the system level interaction of characters across time. This is why creation myths, temple layouts, musical systems, anatomical metaphors, etc., are not pre-scientific. They are pre-algebraic science, working directly at the level where energy becomes form and form becomes behavior. When you say, in the beginning was the word, you're not hearing poetry. You're hearing the earliest language for organized structure entering reality, geometry beginning to speak for itself. Hebrews chapter 1 verse 3 says that Jesus is the express character of his person. Yes, the word image in Hebrews chapter 1 verse 3 is character. That word does not mean a picture or statue. It means an imprint, the mark, the seal, the pattern. It refers to exact correspondence of structure, not a visual likeness. Jesus is being described as the structural expression of God's nature, not a portrait of an anthropomorphized appearance. This is why the Bible simultaneously forbids the worship of images. An image, in the forbidden sense, is a frozen representation that replaces the living source. A carved idol, painting, mental picture. This is why in Kemet, one very, very specific difference in language is that there aren't any, first of all, there's no real term for dead in the Western sense, and words are not dead. Everything is a process because everything was understood as living, right? Kepra, becoming, right? All right. So we didn't get out of the first chapter yesterday. We will get out of the first chapter today. Inspiration and the Godometer, the Godometer. You can pronounce that either way, Godometer or Godometer. My goal in this book is to clear up inspiration for you and the people you are transmitting it to. Inspiration is the moment when a traveling wave of organized energy enters a standing biological structure and reconfigures it into a new coherent pattern. That's why inspiration is synonymous with breathing, but it's also synonymous with new emotion, new ideas, the spark of genius, the light bulb going off, right? It's also synonymous with liturgy, theology, right? Because the source of these things is all the same. The source of these things is all the same. The source of the sources, right? The source of the sources, intelligent energy, right? The source of the sources. In physical terms, inspiration is information. Inspiration is information. Information transferred by resonance. A signal, right? A signal. This goes back to that communication thing I was saying earlier, right? Communication, a conversation doesn't have to be words, right? They can be sound, light, pressure, electrical pattern, visual form, conceptual structure, right? As long as we can transfer from one to another, right? Propagate through a medium and couple to a pre-existing standing system, right? Your brain, your nervous tissue, right? Pigment, memory lattice, cultural structure. When the incoming wave phase locks with that standing system, it reorders stored energy into a new configuration. That reordering is experienced subjectively as insight, creativity, realization, rejuvenation. We have a whole generation of, I can't say kids, but I'll say younger adults than me who felt the need, right, to tap into lean, right? They tapped into lean. They tapping into much heavier drugs to feel creative, right? In order for them to go into the studio and, you know, do their thing, record some music, in order for them to write some music at the house, or poetry or art, paint, whatever, make a beat, whatever. In order to get into a creative space, they're on heroin, they're on opioids, right? My generation, good old fashioned. I'm the last generation of natural marijuana. Natural marijuana. So people nowadays don't even have that to say. Like, oh, I only smoke weed. There's no such thing as only smoke weed. Weed is a hardcore drug nowadays. Weed is synthetic. It's GMO, genetically modified, which is the reason why there's so many different strains. None of those are land race. Most people don't even know what land race is. I talk to people all the time that know everything you can think of about weed. Oh, this is cupcakes. Oh, no, this is gorilla. This is gorilla mixed with cupcakes. This is purple cupcake. This is purple gorilla cupcake. All these different weed conversations. They don't know what land race means, right? That's the real stuff that grows the way nature, right? And if they had some of that, they would say it's garbage. That's headache weed, right? Because you're used to having so much concentrated THC in the genetically modified versions, right? And some of that stuff has other things, chemicals put in. You know what I'm saying? They even experimenting with fentanyl in different, you know, strains of weed and all that now. So it's wow, right? But just to get to that creative space, just to feel inspired, you know what I'm saying? People are popping the Molly, you know what I'm saying? Popping the Molly, popping the E-pills, popping the Addies, you know what I'm saying? And mixing that with the gas and mixing that with the syrup and the this and the that, one and the other, you know what I'm saying? But it's just to feel that spark. You know what I'm saying? Because that's so important. That transcends material station in life. The need to feel that spark, right? The same way a person that could be homeless needs to feel that spark, that connection to get your creative juices flowing. A person sitting in a $10, $20 million house may be pacing the floor back and forth trying to figure out how to get that same, neither of them knowing what the actual thing they're looking for is. They just know how to facilitate it. And yeah, I'm gonna go get me some Cisco. $2. I'm gonna go get me some Cisco and 2 loose cigarettes. $3. I'm gonna be in the game. Get me a bottle of Cisco for $2 and get me 2 cigarettes for $1. Whoop, I'm in the game. Somebody else, they might be sitting in a $800,000 house or $1 million house. They're gonna go get them a $1,000 bottle of scissor with, who knows. But you get my point. Yeah, let me pull it up. Let me pull it up and show you what I'm saying. Because I don't mean land raised. I mean land race. So let me show y'all what I'm saying. Can y'all see what I got up there? Okay. So land race and land raised is different, right? Land raised is what they call outdoor. You can have plenty of strong outdoor, different types of cannabis. It's less control over growing outdoor, right? But that is not the same as land race. Land race is the original strands of hemp, marijuana, cannabis. Yeah. Without any human messing around. This is just the original plants as they were naturally. Right? But then they started hydro, and hydro gave the ability to open the door to genetic modification. So that was the experimental phase, right? Now you got land race, similar but different. While the terms are often used interchangeably, they have distinct technical differences. Plants that remain in their native original geographic region and evolve naturally. That's land race. Heirloom is land race genetics that have been transported to other places, right? But are still grown naturally, right? So if you take some original strains that come from Africa or India or wherever, and you grow them in New York, those are not land race anymore. It's heirloom if you keep them pure. You can grow them in Georgia or Cali or Texas or wherever, but it's not the same. And I've had this conversation about nutritional therapeutic herbs, right? when you take a plant and you grow that plant in a different place, it is a different plant, right? And now that the weed business has grown under, the name cannabis business so big, people have started to invest money in research and start to explore that it's not just the THC, it's the THC combined with a whole bunch of other things, which is what makes each thing different, right? The THC gives you the quote unquote high. The THC stimulates your melanin concentrating hormone, right? That's how cannabis makes you hungry. It gives you the munchies because cannabis stimulates melanin concentrating hormone. It works on your melanin system like everything else, right? So it boosts up your melanin concentrating hormone and you get the munchies. Now, if you don't fall to the munchies, meaning you ignore the munchies, then your body will go into autophagy very quickly. So this is one of the ways that you can get therapeutic value from cannabis or cannabis products. But very few people can ignore high levels of melanin concentrating hormone in their system, right? When you get that, and when the melanin concentrating hormone is flooding your body, because that's when you start to look at food differently. And you start to, food tastes different and everything tastes amazing. That's the reason, because you have super high levels of melanin concentrating hormone, right? So if you can ignore that, let your stomach growl, right? If you can ignore that, your body will go into autophagy. If you don't ignore that, then cannabis not only doesn't really offer any therapeutic value, but it is the opposite of therapeutic. Because now you're going to have cheap, fatty, sugary foods, which are going to, take your health, obviously, in the opposite direction. Yeah, nobody really has the original, because the original is no good. It's no good for the purpose of getting high. You know what I'm saying? So people may have original strains of Gorilla Glue or Purple Haze or Cupcake. Am I saying cupcake? No, cookies. Why do I keep saying cupcakes? Cookies. I think that's the big thing from Cali. Cookies. You know what I'm saying? They may have original versions of those things, but the original versions of cookies is a genetic modified hybrid. The original version of, Gorilla Glue or whatever these things, these are all. Anyway, that's why I don't like mentioning cannabis, because we never get into we never get into an endocannabinoid conversation about autophagy, inflammation, and blah blah blah. It goes to a weed conversation. But anyway, back to the book. Back to the book. All right. Biologically, inspiration is a field event before it is a thought. It begins as traveling electromagnetic waves entering sensory systems converted into ionic and electrical traveling waves and nerves, which then shift standing membrane potentials and synaptic weight patterns, permanently altering the physical memory structure of the brain. Now, of course, because I know for some people listening, that right there just sounded like the Charlie Brown teacher. Boom, wah, boom, wah, bah, boom, wah, bah. Right? I get it. That's we have a book though. We have a book for that though. And of course, I can't find it. But it's called If P, Then Q. If P, then Q. Really gotta get this thing reorganized. Are you over here? Let's see, maybe you over here. No, you are not over here because these are all Rich Abs books. Okay, yeah, I don't know where it is. But we do have a book on it. The If P Then Q book. Where we walk through brain activity in greater detail. Right? But I'll go over this, hopefully to provide a little bit of clarity. Biologically, inspiration is a field event before it is a thought. All right, field event. That word field is getting ready to get like alkaline or chakra. Just wait on it. Give it a couple years. That word field is going to be everywhere. You're going to want to slap somebody. They're going to be throwing that word around and not knowing what they're talking about. Right? But when you're talking about field, primarily what we're talking about is electric or magnetic. Primarily. Right? Primarily what we're talking about, electric or magnetic. Now, past that, we have mechanical. Right? These are your two primary types of waves. Electromagnetic waves, mechanical waves. Right? Then you have traveling or standing waves. Right? Now, the fact that it is a wave means there is a substance. The fact that it is a wave means there is a substance. There is something waving. Right? There's something waving. And that takes us back to the two primary definitions of energy. Right? Potential and kinetic. So if you want to think of it as water, right? Water, perfectly still. Now we know that that doesn't really exist, but imagine in your mind, there's an ocean and there's no movement in the ocean anywhere at the top or all the way to the bottom. There's no movement in the ocean. The ocean is perfectly still, right? That is a lot of potential energy, right? Now, the moment something disturbs the water, right? The force of whatever that thing is going to be transferred to the water, and the water is going to have some degree of waves. But the degree of the waves is directly proportionate to the force from the thing, whatever that is. So let's say you got one of them bad children, not a bad child. Let's say me or you. You know what I'm saying? We just throw a rock, right? Whatever the speed, the velocity, right? The force that rock carries is going to be translated to the water. And it's going to cause the water to, right? So the potential energy is going to be transformed into kinetic because the water as a medium or as a field, right? The water as a field was disturbed by the rock, the particle, right? And now the disturbance of the field is your waves, and you can determine the energy of the disturber by the energy of the waves, right? The climax of the wave, the trough of the waves, the speed, the length of the waves, all of that can tell you about the end, whatever that thing was that caused the disturbance, right? So it is another way of looking at the same thing. Kinetic potential, waves, right? Waves are just quantifying the disturbances, right? But without saying it, it implies that there is a medium because something must be waving, right? Something must be waving. Boy, you said my camera's off? Y'all can't see me right now? I can see me. Chat, can y'all see me right now? Oh, okay. Paul said my camera's off. Paul is trolling. Paul, you are trolling. That's what you doing, brother. You are trolling. Okay, yeah, Paul is trolling. It's all right. Paul is doing a little bit of trolling. Or maybe something's up with Paul's phone, tablet, laptop, whatever Paul watching on. Paul, something up with your device. When I share this, can y'all see the words? Can y'all see that? Let me ask y'all that. Can y'all see the when I share the pages of the book, can y'all see it? Okay. Paul is on that. Man, Paul, listen. Paul is on them cookies. Paul is on that. Paul is on that Gorilla Glue. That's a fact. So you got your breakdown though. You got typical, electromagnetic, mechanical, and then when describing what's going on with the waves, traveling, standing, right? All right. So when we see here at the bottom of the page where it says biologically, inspiration is a field event before it is a thought or a feeling or an emotion. That's what that means. Field event, right? It is talking about the electric field, the magnetic field, the sound sphere, right? The sound sphere, right? The atmosphere, right? traveling electromagnetic waves entering sensory systems, converted into ionic and electrical traveling waves in nerves, right? Obviously, pigment, right? Which then shift standing membrane potentials and synaptic weight patterns, permanently altering physical memory structures in the brain. That permanent alteration is the physical meaning of being inspired. In the electron transport chain of mitochondria, tunneling is not electrons disappearing and reappearing. It is electrons moving by resonance. The same way one tuning fork can make another identical tuning fork vibrate from across the room, right? This is why we have to continue to get this visual in our mind.
Rolling through the sand like a thought in disguise. The scarab spins truth where the cosmos collide. Energy whispers, it never says goodbye. The Beatles crawl, the Beatles rise.
Go to AmericanHealer.website now. Get the tools for health and inspiration the way God intended.
Sort of burst the chaos, yet the chaos rise. My name Beatles, 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 over and over, spinning the world in the grip of their shoulders. Beatles, 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 under and over, rolling through time till the blackness is sober. The heat fades lower, the order begins. The stillness so perfect, it hums from within. The void sings softly, entropy takes a bow. In the shadow of silence, the scarab knows how. The second law.
Ray trolling me, bro.
No, I'm not.
Yes, you is, bro.
Tika's right there.
You trolling me, put me on camera though.
Man, just say thank you and get
Thank you, Tika. We appreciate it.
No,
And happy holidays.
All right, now get off my live.
All right, bro. It's because I wasn't looking too Christian.
Boy done invaded my live stream. This boy done invaded my live stream, bro. What I'm gonna do with this boy? Talking about where is Tika on the live stream? I'm on the live stream. What's wrong with him? Boy is wow. All right. So the permanent alteration is the physical meaning of being inspired. In the electron transport chain of mitochondria, tunneling is not electrons disappearing and reappearing. It is electrons moving by resonance, the same way a tuning fork can make another identical tuning fork vibrate from across the room. This is where we get to the specifics of God being music. And, you know, I may have been the first person to turn that into a religion or a culture or idea or a study, but the Bible has music as the only language that you can communicate with God in. When you go through the Bible, that's the only way you can communicate with God is music. That's what God, period. Song and dance. Outside of that is prayer. But there's no other mechanism. And you go back to Kemet, music is strictly a divine activity. It is a strict divine activity. It is a strict divine activity. Yes, music was for pleasure, but it was a divine activity. Music was seen as literally conjuring the gods. You were literally bringing the gods in. Right? And for great reason. That is not scientifically far off. It's not scientifically far off. Right? And we see that now when we look at what our most modern science has to give us in terms of mitochondria, the Krebs cycle, eating every day, how we process Oreo cookies, how we process Reese's peanut butter cups, how we process kale salads, right? How we process smoothies, green juices, steaks, chickens, whatever it is that you got going on over there, right? Because I know some of y'all over there, right? You done went to AmericanHealer.website, right? You done went to the website. You done got you a little box. You got your bitters and your, right? You done got you some, your monthly detox kit. You done got you together. And some people watching this video right now with a cigarette. They putting their cigarette. Yo, Inky going in. Yo, it's crazy. Yo, Inky going in. Yo, give me another one of them beers right there. Yeah, Inky going in. So we got people at every level of the health spectrum tuning in. And listen, your body worked exactly the same. Your body today works the same way one of the pharaohs' bodies worked, or prophets, right? The person who's having 50-cent beers, their body works the same way as the person having $20 smoothies, right? May not be in as good a shape, right? But how it works, which is the reason why it would have a value of carving this type of information in stone. Because the human body works how the human body works. Period. And it's going to work the same way in 500 years. It's going to work the same way. The cells are going to be powered. Now, depending on the environment and how our bodies have to adapt and blah, blah, blah. But the system, the mechanism of converting stored energy to usable energy, recycling that to structure, like that's not going to change. No, that's serious. That's serious. All right, right now, just in case y'all don't know, we're going through In the Beginning Was the Wave, right? So we make sure everybody's on the same page. Right, let's make sure we're on the same page. We are in this book. This is what we're on right now. So make sure you have this book. Make sure you have this book. Right? Our little video show you how to do it.
is truth where the cosmos collide. Energy whispers, it never says goodbye. The Beatles crawl, the Beatles rise.
So make sure you have this book. All right. The proteins in the electron transport chain are arranged with pigments, metal centers, and aromatic rings placed at specific distances that match electron vibrational frequencies. When an electron vibrates in one complex, it sets up a standing wave pattern that can only be completed by a corresponding site in the next complex. The electron doesn't leap across space. The wave reorganizes, and the electron is simply found where the resonance pattern is strongest. It is not teleportation, it's harmonic transfer. In the nervous system, inspiration is a phase transition in a memory field. The system moves from one stable standing wave configuration to another because an external traveling wave forced a reorganization. That is why inspiration feels sudden, uncontrollable, discontinuous. This is why when you get that urge, right? When you get that feeling, you got to go right then, right? You got to go right then. Or maybe you a hooper. You got to grab the ball. And this is why NBA players or professional basketball players, the first thing they invest in is a basketball. Even if they getting a $500 hoop to put on the side of their house, they got to have that, right? When they get big money, they get an indoor whole little, whole joint. You know what I'm saying? But until then, they get a little $300, $400, $500 joint because they got to, when they feel it, they got to go put that together right then. Or if you a writer, you got to, I'll write anywhere. And if I don't have nothing to write with, I'll start text messaging people. Be like, yeah, this ain't for you. I just had to text this out though. So I can have this later. So I get back to the house. I can. Yeah, because when it come. Pause. Right? So in nervous system language, inspiration is a phase transition in the memory field. The system moves from one stable standing wave configuration to another because an external traveling wave forced a reorganization. This is why inspiration feels sudden, uncontrollable, and discontinuous. We had that last paragraph right there. Right? It is not a stepwise reasoning. It is a resonant collapse into a new stable order. Here's another way to think of it. Go back to what I was saying about the ocean that's not moving, right? The ocean doesn't have any control over you coming and then throwing the rock, right? You decided to do that. You enforced your will on the ocean. The ocean was minding its business perfectly still. Here you come, you threw the rock. So now the ocean has no choice. Absorb the impact of the rock, right? The impact, the transfer of the energy from the rock to the water, and then the waves, right? And then at some point, the waves will ride out, the waves will dissipate because the energy will spread out to the point where the vibration is no longer obvious to the naked eye and then totally gone, right? And the water will find new configuration of stillness, right? But in the process of the vibrating, the water molecules all switched and went wherever they went. So when it becomes still again, it looks the same from the naked eye, but the water molecules are all rearranged and all over the place, right? Because it's now a new, right? So it's the same as, right? Oh, man, right? And then when we have conversations like this, right? The way the human mind is designed, because you're designed to be inspired. You're designed to be creative. When you have one of those moments, dopamine is released. The same way, like if you hit a blunt, dopamine is released. Or if you snort cocaine or sip some lean, when you have one of those moments of inspiration, dopamine is released. So if you enjoy these type of studies or conversations, it's because while you're listening, dopamine is being released. Because God wants you to continue to do this. We are hardwired for creativity. We're hardwired for genius. So we are attracted to things that inspire us. Inspiration. Yo, how y'all battling out? How y'all battling out top 10 songs? How y'all battling out top 10 songs and y'all ain't even, we just dropped a fresh, what, 2 albums, 25 songs, 30 songs yesterday. Yeah, we just dropped some new. I gotta go. It's not in the new playlist though. It's in the Holy Days playlist. Yeah, the Holy Days playlist is tough. In fact, Peyton, I'm gonna be honest. I was thinking about you primarily making that playlist. I was primarily thinking of you making that new playlist, or rather putting the new songs in the playlist, because they all like up tempo. That's what Peyton likes. I mean, Peyton likes everything, but he specifically likes those. You know what I'm saying? So I was really thinking about, I was like, okay, yeah, we're gonna hold it down for Mr. Back to back to back to back super chat. We're gonna make sure we go crazy. I gotta see a picture of that joint. You gotta send me a picture of that. Nah, it's new. It's a bunch of new. It's a bunch of new joints in there. I'm not gonna play it right now. I might play some later because I want to stick with the book, stick with the science. But I will show you them joints real quick. I will show them to you real quick. And then maybe for the people who don't know how to get to the playlist, right? So just go to the Dr. Inky Jed School page and then go to the playlist. And we got thousands of songs here. The music industry shut down, but we did not. Yeah, so when you come into the Holy Day, this is where I'm talking about. We put the new songs. So remember, it was only like 5 or 6 new songs in here. I mean, I think it was like 6 songs in here. Let me see. It was, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, it was only 6 songs in this playlist. Now we got 29 songs. Yeah, now we got 29 songs in here. So all these songs are brand new. They dropped on Christmas. All these songs dropped on Christmas. Okay. All right. Back to work. Back to work. We ain't listening to Tika and Peyton no more. They trolling. They are trolling. All right. So we got this. Right? Inspiration is the point where organized traveling motion writes itself into biological standing structure. Right? If you don't have the book yet, if you have not ordered this book yet, you should be writing this down. You should be writing this down. Right? If you don't have the book yet, you should be writing this down. If you do have the book, you should be highlighting this. You should be underlining this or using a highlighter to highlight this page. Inspiration is the point where organized traveling motion writes itself into biological standing structure. Inspiration is the point where organized traveling motion writes itself into biological standing structure. It is not supernatural. It is not metaphor. It is the physics of how motion becomes meaning inside living matter. In Kemet, the supreme creative entity, Re, is not represented as a man crafting objects with hands. Re is represented through glyphs that encode radiation, oscillation, and enclosure, a standing wave and a resonant wave cavity. The solar disk itself is a closed, bound resonance field. The daily journey of Re across the sky and through the duat is a traveling wave propagating energy moving through layered domains. From the very beginning, Kemetic theology did not depict God as a personality outside of nature, but as the ordered behavior of energy itself, standing where it is stored, traveling where it transmits. This is not symbolic. Wait, did I leave y'all? Let me see. No, we on the same page. The solar disk. Oh, okay, yeah. This is not symbolic imagination in the modern sense. It is a field description using pre-mathematical language. God isn't outside creation, he is in it. Genesis chapter 2, verse 7 implies it. He breathes himself into you. You don't create life, you reproduce it. Right? You don't create life, you reproduce it. You have a reproduction system. You are reproducing. Now place the 3-4-5 triangle directly inside that motif. The 3-4-5 triangle is the simplest geometric device that converts two perpendicular oscillations into a coherent traveling result. One direction oscillates over a length of 3 units, the perpendicular direction oscillates over 4 units, and the diagonal resultant is 5 units. This is not numerology, this is vector physics. Any two perpendicular wave components interact, the resultant energy does not remain perpendicular. It travels diagonally as a resolved vector. The 3-4-5 triangle is therefore not just a masonry tool. It is a physical operator that converts stored oscillation into directed propagation. In that sense, it literally functions as a device, a measuring device for organized motion of waves. This is the Godometer or Godometer. Yeah, I came up with that. This is why the 3-4-5 triangle appears inside temple construction, surveying, land division, and orientation. It is not just about right angles, it's about controlling how energy is resolved through space. When Kemetic builders squared foundations with the 3-4-5, they were not only ensuring geometric accuracy, they were locking architectural space into stable, perpendicular, standing tension with a guaranteed diagonal flow path. Now, I know somebody might say, Inky, you just made that up. Nobody measured anything with a 3-4-5 triangle. And you would be partially correct. But what they did use is a 90-degree angle. My boy came in here and threw my light off. What they did use was the 90-degree angle, right? And going back to Kemet, they absolutely used the 3-4-5 triangle, right? They had a rope that they would use, the harpanopte. They had a rope that they would use with 12 knots, 12 divisions, right? Very interesting that they built the land with a rope with 12 divisions, right? But when you divide the rope, right, the rope was used to square things. And the way they squared things with the rope was by using that rope with 12 knots in it to make a triangle. When they made the triangle, that gave them a 90-degree angle. But it also gave them a 3-4-5 triangle, right? Three plus 4 is 7, plus 5 is 12, right? The simplest way to come to a perfect 3-4-5 triangle is by putting 12 divisible units in a rope, boop, marking it off and tying it off. So now all you got to do is pull the rope tight. Zoop, zoop. Once you pull the rope tight into a right angle triangle, you have a 3-4-5. And this is what the early masons or builders in Kemet used. Right? And just so that we are tight, because we may have some new folks. We've been discussing this for a long time, but we may have some new folks. So we can go over here and see what Gemini says. Rope with 12 knots. Yeah, I do not know how to spell that word. I definitely butchered that. Okay, there we go. It wasn't that bad. It wasn't that far off. The phase rope with 12 knots refers to an ancient Egyptian measuring tool used by surveyors and builders called the rope stretchers, the harpanopte. Harpanopte is a Greek term for the ancient Egyptian surveyors, literally meaning rope stretchers. Notice that the root of that word harpanopte to denote the masons or the early builders is harp, a stringed musical instrument, right? But these individuals were highly skilled and responsible for reestablishing land boundaries after the annual flood, as well as laying precise foundations for buildings, temples, and pyramids. The 12-knot rope tool. The tool was a loop of rope with 12 equally spaced knots, creating 12 sections or intervals. This simple device was used to create perfect right angles using a technique based on what we now call the Pythagorean theorem, which was formalized by a Greek mathematician, Pythagoras, much later, who actually never existed. Anyway, how it worked. The rope was stretched out to form a triangle with a side length of 3, 4, and 5 units. When the rope was held taut in this 3, 4, 5 configuration, the angle between the sides of the length was exactly 90 degrees. All right, so we just wanted to make sure glad I could give you one. Listen, I said that's what we watch for, to have those moments. Boop. So that released some dopamine, right? You know, that was a dopamine moment. Those are onlyfacts.com. That is a fact. I don't think people nowadays have those intentions, purposes, or but absolutely. There's a reason why, you know, even the scarab, right, or the lev, you know what I'm saying, was used as an amulet for the weighing of the heart ceremony and all that. So yeah, it's absolutely facts to that. All right, so where was we at? What y'all things say there? Okay, the 3, 4, 5 triangle appears inside temple construction, surveying, blah, 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 blah. Kemetic builders, square foundations with the 3, 4, 5. They were not only ensuring geometric accuracy, they were locking architectural space into stable, perpendicular standing tension with a guaranteed diagonal flow path. Every properly tuned resonant system requires exactly that condition. Perpendicular containment plus diagonal release. This is the same law that governs waveguides, light propagation, and even blood flow in curved vessels. All right, so when looking at the triangle, right, talking about electric and magnetic, right? Let me erase that and rewrite it. Let me erase it and rewrite it, right? What I'm expressing is that in the written form, not in 3 dimensions. In 3 dimensions is different. In the written form, right? A magnetic field is going to be the base. Magnetic field is going to be the base. The electric field is going to be the rise, right? And your representation of the combination of the electric field and the magnetic field is going to be your run, right? But this is how an electric field and a magnetic field interact to produce light. Electric fields and magnetic fields interact at 90-degree angles, right? This is a deeper aspect in masonry, right? Electric fields and magnetic fields interact at 90-degree angles to produce light. All right. Hold on. Get you on the next page. From there, the system of doubling numbers naturally emerges, not as simple theology, but as wave stability. We, as computers, learned doubling and halving as basic math. The temple architecture matches motherboards and chips, right? So you got to say that to yourself. Kemet was insane. They was not only ahead of their time 5,000 years ago, they in many ways are still ahead of our time. When a frequency doubles, it produces the octave. When a length halves, the pitch doubles. This is not music theory first, it is wave closure first. The same doubling logic appears. Okay, let's go back to the whiteboard. Let's go back to the whiteboard, right? Because if you notice, when I looked up musical notation, they violated Kemet, right? They violated Kemet. So let's deal with this real quick so you can see how this 3, 4, 5 triangle really is wild. Right? That's why y'all have to have these books. Y'all know you could wake up one day and all the books be don't play. All right. So let's look at a line. Let's take a line. Right? Remember in the trigonometry book, where's the trigonometry book? Where's the trigonometry book? Okay, these are all the Black's Anatomy's books. A thick book. Where is the book at? Rolling to energy whisper. Never says goodbye. Okay. In this book right here, the trigonometry book. Right? In the trigonometry book, we go through. It might even make sense for us to go through some of this book. Some of y'all may not have this book. So maybe we should go, yeah, let me sit this right here. We might go through some of this, right? I think we should go through that real, just touch on it. Just touch. How that song? Touch it, bring it, bang it. Once you turn it, leave it. Not one man. Touch it, bring it, bang it. Yeah, we might have to touch that book right there real quick. Right? Okay. when a frequency doubles, right? When it doubles, you get an octave. Okay? When it doubles, you get an octave. Now, how do we see this in Kemet? Before we even go any further, how do we see this in Kemet? You have what? The ogdode. Right? And what are the ogdode is composed of? The ogdode is composed of doubles. Literally. Right? Okay. Okay. They trying to violate Kemet. It's okay. It's all right. It's just we've been stuck with Kemetic scholars that only study Medu Neter. So they ain't studying Kemetic music, Kemetic medicine, Kemetic math. We've been violated every which way around. Anyway, so when a frequency doubles, you get an octave, right? When the frequency halves, right? When a frequency halves, so let's say we half this frequency. When we half it, when we cut it in half, the pitch doubles. Right? So when you double a frequency, you get an octave. When you cut a frequency in half, the pitch doubles. That is the basics. That is the basics of musical theory. Musical theory is Kemetic theology. Musical theory is Kemetic theology. But hold on. Because remember, when we're talking about music, right? We're talking about mechanical waves. We're talking about mechanical waves. But all of the rules and the laws that apply to mechanical waves, for the most part anyway, also apply to electromagnetic. This is why the 3-4-5 triangle is so important. This is why I named it the Godometer, because the 3-4-5 triangle gave us all of this science, and it gave us the ability today to measure mechanical waves and electromagnetic waves. So if there's no 3-4-5 triangle, if there's no guys running around with the rope with the 12 knots in it, there's no laptop. Without the rope with the 12 knots, there's no modem. There's no controlled radio waves to give you cable. We don't know what. Yeah, we would never seen AJ and Jake Paul. There's no technology without the rope with the 12 knots in it. I need y'all to get it. This is why it's so valuable that these people would come and snatch it and make up a person named Pythagoras to claim credit. Because the intellectual property is worth quadrillions and quadrillions of dollars. So that's another reason why I don't agree with FBA. Like, y'all not even having the right conversations. If you're talking about reparations, you need to be talking about intellectual property. So anyway, you double the frequency, you get an octave. You cut it in half, the pitch doubles. This is how we even explored, and this is how we got the breakdown of what is called the electromagnetic spectrum. Right? because you have the UV waves, which is real small. Those is real small waves. Then you have, what you got first? Okay, you go UV, visible, and then it's infrared. And then after infrared, you got short, long infrared. Then I believe is microwave. Is it microwave? It might be microwave, and then it's radio wave. I know radio waves is super large. Super large waves. Right? Radio waves can wrap around Earth. Radio waves are big. Right? So the 3-4-5 triangle gives us the ability to understand all of these different things. Right? And it's through, let's just put it over here, doubling and halving. Right? Doubling and halving frequencies. Right? You double the frequency, you get an octave. You cut it in half, the pitch doubles. Right? So doubling and halving is the math of wave functions. Doubling and halving is the mathematic of wave functions. It's not complex equations. It's not Schrodinger's thing and all this and all that. That's later. The basic math to understand how waves behave is doubling and halving numbers. So remember, we talked about the quadrivium and the trivium, right? And I said that is one of the things that the Greeks got from Kemet, right? And it's passed on and passed down through history by Masons, right? Because the churches kind of outlawed it. Yeah, the churches kind of outlawed it, and the Masons went underground with it, right? And that's where you get the whole, what is that, 13th century, where they hung all of the Templars and one of the other dudes and whatever. I don't know the story. It's somewhere in the back of my memory somewhere, right? But they did it in the movie V for Vendetta. V for Vendetta, if you remember that movie, they kind of told that story in there, right? But it was about education, right? It was about education. So the educational system from Kemet had to go underground, right? And then in the Renaissance era, it becomes what's called the Invisible College, right? Or the Invisible. I think that was the popular name, Invisible College. But anyway, doubling and halving is the basic arithmetic in Kemet. That's how they taught their arithmetic, doubling and halving. Whereas we do our math completely different nowadays. They did everything doubling and halving. So doubling and halving not only is the math required to understand music, electrical waves, and mechanical waves, it's also the foundation for binary coding. It's also the foundation for binary coding. So it's not just a matter of the actual electricity or the light that your technology uses, but it is the code that programs how the electricity and the light moves through the systems. All of that comes from the math, the arithmetic, the basic math in Kemet. Think about that. Because you'll be misled to believe that complicated equations, linear calculus, and, geometric, trigonometry and algebra, and you need these things to deal with complex. No, the basic arithmetic, and we're going to go through some in a second. The basic arithmetic of doubling and halving gave birth to understanding how waves function and the binary coding that we use to program wave functions in real time, like in our laptops, computers, cameras, electron microscopes, and radio, TV, lights, cameras, action, all of the technology we are so proud of today. Right? So when a frequency doubles, it's an octave. When the length halves, the pitch doubles. This is not music theory first. The same science, the same math, string harmonics, pianos, organs, binary arithmetic, electrical oscillators, calendar cycles, as well as biological rhythms. So even understanding anatomy, because so much of your anatomy is based on mechanical and electromagnetic waves. Remember, your body is made from crystals, special crystals, right? But crystals nonetheless, right? If you had any doubt that your body was made out of crystals, all you have to do is check and see how many different aspects of your body are piezoelectric. The reason why you have piezoelectric body parts is because they are crystals, not necessarily the same type of crystal as like a quartz or a ruby or a diamond. But crystal nonetheless, because a crystal is less about, like having a jewel or, like a polished stone that you can wear, and more about how the atoms are arranged in regular intervals, right? They're arranged in regular intervals. Those regular intervals allow for mechanical pressure to be converted to electrical signals. Right? And those electrical signals can be interpreted with binary coding. Oh man, my battery.
Rolling through the sand like a thought in disguise. The scarab spins truth where the cosmos collide. Energy whispers, it never says goodbye. The Beatles crawl, the Beatles rise.
Go to AmericanHealer.website now. Get the tools for health and inspiration the way God intended.
Sort of burst the chaos, yet the chaos rise. My name Beatles, 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 over and over, spinning the world in the grip of their shoulders. Beatles, 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 under and over, rolling through time till the blackness is sober. The heat fades lower, the order begins. The stillness so perfect, it hums from within. The void sings softly, entropy takes a bow. In the shadow of silence, the scarab knows how. The second law is dancing, feeding life through decay. The third law holds the promise that the stillness will stay. Beatles, Beatles, Beatles. innocent like a thought in disguise. The scarab spins truth where the cosmos collide. Energy whispers, it never says goodbye. The Beatles crawl, the Beatles rise.
Go to AmericanHealer.website now. Get the tools for health and inspiration the way God intended.
Sort of burst the chaos, yet the chaos rise. My name Beatles, 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 over and over, spinning the world in the grip of their shoulders. Beatles, 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 under and over, rolling through time till the blackness is sober. The heat fades lower, the order begins. The stillness so perfect, it hums from within. The void sings softly, entropy takes a bow. In the shadow of silence, the scarab knows how. The second law is dancing, feeding life through decay. The third law holds the promise that the stillness will stay. Time till the blackness is sober.
Go to AmericanHealer.website now. Get the tools for health and inspiration the way God intended.